Thanks for staying up later. Timothy Leary is with us again tonight. Now, last time we had our exchange or debate, however you want to characterize it, about the use of drugs. As most of you know, Dr. Leary was very prominent in the 60s and 70s in the youth culture and popularized the phrase tune in, turn on, and drop out with regard to LSD use. Now, we've gone over all that ground from a theoretical perspective the last time, but I do want to talk about some specific incidents tonight, because regardless of how people may have felt about the use of acid or other drugs, these are, in retrospect, interesting and maybe even entertaining incidents that occurred to you. One great irony is that, and I take it this is just by coincidence, G. Gordon Liddy was involved with the police in Millbrook, New York, where you were living in a mansion, and he led a raid in which you were arrested.
Gordon Liddy was an ambitious district attorney. He was a former FBI agent with a lot of crusading, stamp out sin motivation, and very ambitious. And he raided my center there, research center, not once but several times, and actually did get us to leave the county. Liddy was then promoted on the basis of having stopped the drug menace in Dutchess County, New York, promoted or demoted to the Nixon White House, where he went on to make other midnight raids, which are of equal dubious legality. And I've always seen Liddy as my rival. I like to personalize things. Liddy was the most intelligent man in the Nixon White House. Now, that's not saying much. He was the most literate. And always I knew that Liddy and I were going to, we ended up, by the way, in the same federal prison, a week apart. And when I went to Terminal Island Prison, one of the top prisoners came in and said, well, I got best wishes from you from Gordon Liddy. He just shipped out, but he told me to take care of you. So that there's an affection, there's a mutual respect between Liddy and myself. We're still debating. I've debated Gordon 10 times in the last 3 months. I'm debating him at USC.
What were these sessions like, you and Liddy? What are they like?
Liddy's wonderful. He gives you the classic Pentagon Republican Party line, the way it is right now. If I want to know what they're thinking about in the White House, Liddy will tell you. He is, Gordon has never had an unauthorized thought in his life, but he's very articulate and witty, so he can sell that ridiculous gung-ho Republican stuff, and he's very witty and he's a good debater. I stake the patriotic ground in this discussion. You got the Army, you got the military, you got the police, you've got Plato and Aristotle. But I believe I'm representing tonight the basic American position, the primacy and the sanctity of the individual to be left alone by government.
The position of my opponent on society as able to get along very well without government is fine, so long as you feel no need for any of the services of government. Unfortunately, every community in the face of this earth believes that it needs the services of government. Why? To do that which we cannot do for ourselves. There's no way that we can be protected from the aggressive designs of a hostile state by a group of well-intentioned imbibers in marijuana. They're just going to roll right over you with their tanks.
How well do you know John Lennon? People recall you from the bed-in scene in the hotel where John and Yoko stayed in bed for several days, but how well did you know him?
He came to my center, and we were in very close touch. He actually sent me money when I was in exile in Switzerland, which was taken by the lawyers, but John and Yoko were always in close touch with me. John could not come in America. He had a minor marijuana beef in England, so Nixon wouldn't let him in. And when I was allowed to leave the country, I went up to Montreal, and I was there. 5 of us sang the lyrics to Give Peace a Chance. There were John, Yoko, my wife, and Tommy Smith. At that time in the hotel room in the Queen Elizabeth Hotel in Montreal, he said to me, how can I help your campaign running for governor against Ronald Reagan? And I said, well, write me a campaign song. And he said, what's the motto of your campaign? And my wife said, come together, join the party, which is kind of a typical hippie double entendre. So John started strumming, and the title and some of the best lines from Come Together came from my campaign song, which I was never allowed to run because I was put in California prison. John Lennon, I think, is a great symbol of everything that's that I stand for, which is irreverence and an Irish lilt and lyricism and nose-thumbing at authority and certainly peace. I'm proud to say that John is one of the many fine people I've met in my life.
Now, what lines did you or your wife contribute?
Oh, one thing I can tell you, you gotta be free.
Got to be good looking because he's so hard to see?
No, that's John. The best lines came from John.
You had a Catholic upbringing, and for a while you were at West Point.
Mm-hmm.
Are those coincidences that just lead to an easy analysis, or is it fair to say that to some extent you rebelled against kind of rigid upbringing?
Well, as I look back in my life, and of course this is all fiction and I'm making this up and don't believe anything I say, but basically I've tried to get into the seat of power, these big insectoid bureaucracies, to see how they want to learn how they operate. So I learned how the Jesuits operate because I went to 2 years to a Jesuit school. That's why I don't take any guff from Liddy. I was at West Point, and I know the military mind very well, so I don't have to take any guff from General Schwartz, Nager, Koff, or what is over there. Yeah, my life has been a series. I was a psychiatrist, I was a psychologist, so I know how. I think it's part of growing up. You should experience everything and try these jobs so that you can see the world from different points of view. Yeah, it's a long life, and you should get out there and experience it and try things out and learn these different crafts. You know something? I'm surprised, Bob. I'm 70 years old now, and I don't have any pensions or anything like that. I finally got a pension. I've been a member of SAG, that's the Screen Actors Guild, for 9 years, and one more year, I'm going to have a full pension from SAG. Now, what could be more middle of the road than that?
Do you find that a lot of people want to dislike you because of what you do represent or they think you represent, and then they find that in person you seem a very friendly and non-threatening person, and they're almost taken aback by that? They want to dislike you, and they can't quite, at least to the extent that they'd like to haul off and belch you. You disarm them?
I think so, but I want to tell you, I'm that same way. I hate all organizations and all dogmas and all creeds, but person to person, face to face, I tend to like most people. I don't go any place that I'm not going to have a good time, and I don't meet anyone that I don't think I'm going to like and learn from. So, and people treat me that way too, I think, pretty much.
Is it fair to characterize you as a radical? Is that how you characterize yourself?
I know many people may think I'm radical, but to tell you the truth, Bob, I think I'm a totally mainline person that just goes along drifting with the waves. I've been involved in every major wave in this country. I was in World War II, and I was a 50s person, I was a 60s person. I'm always, just whatever the new thrust is, I think I'm just about as apple pie as any American could be.
At one point, you spent a long stretch in prison. 4 years, 5 years?
4.5 years for the possession of less than a half ounce of marijuana. That's $10 worth of marijuana. That was not my own. I took responsibility for it.
You were arrested, what, leaving California, entering Mexico? Is that where it occurred?
It was actually Texas.
Texas, okay. Arrested on a charge, which then brought you a long prison term, and which now would bring about a $100 fine.
That's right, yeah.
Slap on the wrist, right?
Another reason why they kept me in prison that long was because I did the worst thing you can do to law enforcement and prison establishment. I escaped.
How did you do it?
It was an act of great bravado and acrobatics. I did push-ups and worked out for 6 months before I did it. I went over a wire, over a wall with our gun trucks, and...
Now, what prison was this?
That was San Luis Obispo State, California prison.
A maximum security prison, or...?
No, that was not, no. I see, when I went to prison, the first thing they did was give me tests, psychological tests. Now, it so happened that I designed some of the tests that were used. Remember, I was a consultant in the California prison system years before, so the guy said, sorry, Doc, but we have to get... So you know what I did, Bob? The scores on my test showed me to be the most conforming, timid person with a great interest in gardening and forestry and no clerical aptitudes at all. So they sent me to a kind of a forestry camp, which made it very easy to escape. Why did I escape? Because I was facing 40 years in prison for a half ounce of marijuana, and I felt the only logical thing to do would be to escape.
Didn't the weather underground or Some
the
such
Weather
group
Underground
assist
picked me
you?
up and helped me. I gave your producer some pictures. There's a picture of me. It's a passport picture taken after I had my head shaved with dark glasses under the name of William McNellis, who's a very conservative businessman. That was my passport. It's called the passport fraud. That was another thing they charged me for when I left the country.
So you flee the country, and you wind up in Algeria, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Eldridge Cleaver, who had set up his so-called government in exile there. What sort of fellow was Eldridge Cleaver at that time?
Well, I know Gordon. I mean, I know Gordon. I also know Eldridge very well.
It's an interesting slip.
Yeah, I know.
G. Gordon Liddy and Eldridge Cleaver.
Because they're both people that I'm very much opposed to, but we still have a certain affection and a respect there. Eldridge is a tough guy, and he really, although he comes off as a Black Panther, he's really an establishment man. Eldridge told me once, if I remember, and of course my memory's not that good, but I think I remember Eldridge telling me that he'd like to be the sheriff of the southern town where he could kick butt regardless of race, creed, or color. But Eldridge's a tough guy from a tough background, and well.
So did you bolt, or did he throw you out, or what happened?
I escaped, literally escaped. Yes, he had me under, my wife under gunpoint at one time, and he had me confined to my apartment, and I literally had to escape.
I wouldn't pretend to be able to characterize the Black Panthers as they were constituted in the 60s and 70s up and down, but at least off what I observed in a few experiences, there was a definite militaristic aspect to the whole thing. Totally. I remember seeing Huey Newton speak at Syracuse University, and young college students willingly subjected themselves to something they would never do if it were a speech, let's say, by an ROTC recruiter. They were all patted down and checked at the door, entering the chapel. He was flanked by henchmen, sort of, and they struck certain poses.
Absolutely.
You would be safe in guessing that they were armed, although I didn't see the guns.
No, they loaded guns, openly, yeah.
Sometimes openly, in this case not.
Yeah.
But you know, there was a whole paramilitary thing around it.
The thing that's interesting about that is that, and I got a kick out of it. Here are these young, strong black men who've been subjected to all sorts of persecution and discrimination, and they get a chance where they can kick Whitey's butt, and they can pat down and search white college students. They got a kick out of it.
Newton had a very charismatic presence. He was very handsome, and he moved with great grace.
Yeah.
And as he walked toward the podium to speak at Hendricks Chapel at Syracuse, two of his bodyguards, or whatever they were called, moved forward and removed his cape from his shoulders like he was a prince. It was, in terms of theater, it was a great scene.
Oh, the theater of Huey Newton. He had his picture taken in one of those Panama big chairs, and he's sitting there with his gun. I mean, that was good show business. It's as good as General Schwarzkopf.
So now, eventually you get out of Algeria. You're traipsing around Europe, but they catch up with you. And now you're back in the United States, and did you strike some kind of deal, or?
No, I did 3.5 years after that, and there were a lot of rumors about did I talk or surrender? Listen, I did. I was 2 years over the limits on this marijuana thing. They were keeping me in. When I came out for my last parole, after I'd been in for almost 5 years, they said they didn't decline parole because I had lied on my application where I said I'd never been busted before, and they'd found out that in 1936 I was fined $35 for reckless driving, and they said that was cause to keep me in another year. So I was released from the California prisons when Jerry Brown won over Reagan, and I was freed from the federal prisons when Nixon was kicked out and Ford came in.
So when you went back into prison, you had no idea for how long that might be. For all you knew, you could have been in there for 10 more years or whatever.
Well, to tell you the truth, I was trying to escape again, and I was working on plots of that. But fortunately, the Nixon was forced out, and all of this, by the way, this is bad B-movie stuff. And I've written a book called Flashbacks, and it's now out in reissue, and it's being moved around in Hollywood. There may be a movie made of some of these lurid and dubious adventures.
Has there been talk about who would play you?
Well, I like Schwarzenegger. What do you think?
Fill in your own punchline, folks. I don't know. Okay, fast forward from the stories of days gone by we've been telling to 1991. You're going to have to educate me from the ground up because I am computer illiterate. I know this is a computer. You take it from there.
Well, you know, how do you know? This is actually it's a game machine with the power of a computer. This is we're talking about a $100, $120 instrument here. Before I get into that, I should say that for the last 10 years, I have been involved almost obsessively in developing computer software that will help expand consciousness, increase intelligence, and generate or enhance creativity. Because I'm basically a psychologist, as I think you know. And there's been a resistance against using computers in education because the professors don't like it because it seems that's too techy for them. And the computer people are interested in either business or in games. But a wonderful thing has happened, Bob, in the last 2 years. The power of Japanese electronic industry to produce handheld consumer items is out of control. Every 18 months now, the Japanese produce a new computer or a new multimedia image processor that is that's 10 or 20 or 30 times more powerful than the last one, and about 10% of the cost. So that this is it's actually a game machine, but it's got a compact disc. Let me take it out here and show you. So that in your little computer here, this compact disc, and you can have you can pull off from your television set the 7 o'clock news, and if you don't like Dan Rather, you can have Minnie Mouse's voice. You can edit. Think about it. I think this is one of the ultimate empowerments of the individual, and I give the Japanese a lot of credit. The Japanese know that the money, the big money, is in small, inexpensive consumer items, because hundreds of millions of people are going to have this thing, and instead of the big mainframes or the big television nets. This is going to allow the 14-year-old kid in the inner city to have the ability to edit and film and tape and put their own ideas on screen that perhaps NBC didn't have 25 or 30 years ago. This is very exciting.
Let's hope you don't have to use this for a long time, but I'm told that you give a certain amount of money each year to the Alcor Life Extension Foundation, which plans to freeze your head when you die, and then in effect, when they figure out how, they grow you another body.
Oh, something like that, yeah. There is a group called Alcor. It's in Riverside, California. They're the finest group of scientists and libertarians I know. I signed up to have my head frozen, and possibly my body, if I can afford it. We're not going to die. We're going to deanimate, and we're going to hibernate, and then hopefully we will be brought back. At the present time, Alcor Foundation has 18 people now frozen, some heads and bodies. They have over 200 people signed up, and you do it through insurance. I pay $300 of insurance so I can be insured that if I decide at the last minute I can get myself frozen. And by the way, I may not do it. This is an option. I don't want to give myself over to the worms and maggots or to the microwave of the crematorium. I want to have that option. But also I'm doing this in small groups, and I'm working out a small group commune of some of my friends. If we like each other in this world, let's make a date. We'll meet in, say, 2040 for a reunion, if and when science works out the solutions. And by the way, I feel that your attitude towards dying or immortality is the key.
Timothy Lear is dead.
Well, there's some food for thought here, isn't there, boys and girls? Our thanks to Dr. Timothy Leary for the last 2 nights, and we'll see you later.
Good.
Thanks.